Welcome into another episode of the UCLA Bruins Insider Podcast on Sports Illustrated from the Fans First Sports Network. I'm Tom Cavanaugh. You can follow me at TCAP30 on Twitter/X and follow our insider pages at UCLA Insider on SI. Today we're going to be looking at the upcoming 2025 Bruins football schedule that was released on Wednesday afternoon, and just going to give a way too early prediction on where we see this team at the end of 13 weeks of football of next year. It's a couple common opponents that we have seen from last year in the Big Ten, a couple new teams, and then also a couple familiar faces early in the year as well. Our teams, one familiar face really, and then a couple that they haven't played in years that are non-conference. So we'll start with week one. It's going to be August 30th against Utah. I see the Bruins coming out with a win against the Utes. Had a 5-7 record, lost 7 of their last 8 games this year. They're moving with Zach Wilson's younger brother at quarterback after longtime senior Cam Rising. He got hurt again this year. He's been dealing with injuries his entire career. He's supposed to have another year of eligibility next year. I don't think he takes it. So I think Isaac Wilson is the name of the Utah quarterback. He is, as I mentioned, Zach Wilson, former first-round draft pick, played for the Jets, now on the Denver Broncos. His younger brother is the head quarterback there at Utah. So, obviously it's tough to judge year to year, but I think the Bruins come out with a first non-conference win to open up the season. Also, by the way, every single game this year, the Bruins are going to alternate home and away. They will not have a streak of a couple of home games or a couple of away games. They are on and off every single week this year. So that's a home game against Utah. They'll get that win. Then they got to play UNLV on the road. And the Rebels had a pretty solid season. They made the Mountain West Conference Championship, ended up losing to Boise State, but finished with a 10-2 record in the regular season. They had a star senior quarterback in Malik Williams. He pretty much led their team over Matt Sluka, who was their normal starter to begin the year. Malik Williams pretty much took them all the way to that Mountain West Championship. But it's tough to beat a team in Boise State, considering they're a top 4 team in the college football playoff, getting that bye. So Malik Williams will not be back next year. He used his last year of eligibility, transferring to the Rebels this past year. It's going to be kind of a rebuild year for UNLV. Bruins are on their way up. I think UCLA goes on the road to Las Vegas, gets a win, and they start 2-0. Then in week 3, they're going to take on New Mexico. That's another win for the Bruins. New Mexico has not been a good program, and this is going to be the first matchup between these two teams since 2002 when the Bruins beat the Lobos 27-13. New Mexico's coming off a 5-7 season. They're still in that rebuild path. Just really have never been able to get something really going for a strong year. So I think the Bruins would handle business in this game and get a win. They start 3-0. Week 4 is a bye. It's a very early bye week here for the Bruins this year. They had it much later after, I think, week 5 or 6 this past season. So they'll take a break after 3 non-conference, and then they'll delve into their Big Ten schedule, starting at Northwestern in Chicago. This is another callback to the early 2000s. Last time the Bruins and Wildcats got together was back in 2005, a 50-38 win for UCLA. And it's going to be Chicago in late September. The weather's going to be great. I don't think the Bruins have to deal with any, frigid temperature changes or anything like that. And Northwestern was 4-8 this year. They did not. They obviously have to play a lot of the top teams in the Big Ten as one of the best conferences in all of college football. But they've never really, over the last decades or so, a couple decades, have not been up to par with the rest of those Big Ten teams. And I think UCLA could start off in Big Ten play with a win. So right now I got the Bruins at 4-0 until they enter October and play Penn State at home. It would take a nearly flawless game for the Bruins to take down Penn State, who have really entered the conversation as one of the top teams in the nation. They've been one of the best in the Big Ten for years. They went to the Big Ten championship this past year, lost to Oregon in a close one. But, the Ohio States, Penn States, Oregons of the world in the Big Ten, those teams are just going to, handle business against their lesser opponents. And at this juncture of the Bruins program, I'd say that's about accurate. So I'd give Penn State the win there in Westwood, or in Pasadena, sorry. Bruins will be 4-1. And then in week 7, they're going to take on Michigan State in East Lansing. This is going to be a good game. Two teams that are very evenly matched. You got the Bruins, who are on the come up when it comes to recruiting, transfer portal, that type of thing. And Michigan State's doing the same thing. They had a coaching change this past year. They did not have a great season, just missed out on a bowl game, going 5-7, mimicking the Bruins record. And I think this is a close one, but if this game's at UCLA, I'd give the Bruins the win. But considering it's at Michigan State at Spartan Stadium, I'm going to give Michigan State the win here. It's a tough place to play. Spartans will get it done. It's going to be a high-scoring, close game. Michigan State by 3 to 6 points. I'd take it. So the Bruins will fall to 4-2 after Week 7. Then they'll take on Maryland, who had a really, really tough season. Even though they were one of the best passing offenses in the conference, they finished 4-8, and they allowed a ton of points this year. So if the Bruins have a solid offense like they did this past year in the past game specifically, it's going to be a good win for the Bruins. This is going to be at home against Maryland. Long trip cross country for the Terrapins. Give me the Bruins improving to 5-2 and becoming just one win away from bowl eligibility. Then Week 9, they're going to rematch up against Indiana, who they played last year at home. 42-13 was the score of that game. The Hoosiers blew them out. And, I mean, Indiana, they're a top 12 team in the college football playoff. They went 11-1 this year. They're a very darn good team. And under head coach Curt Cignetti, if he continues to stay with the Hoosier program, he's going to continue to build it. And I'd see a similar outcome happening next year than it did this past season. Bruins will fall to 5-3, maybe not as bad as a blowout as it was this past year, but I don't see them beating the Hoosiers just based off of what Cignetti's building with that program. And then in Week 10, this is a very interesting matchup, a rematch from last year. Game is going to be at the Rose Bowl against Nebraska in the first week in November. This is going to be a great game. Nebraska's, looking for some revenge. UCLA went into their house last year, or this past season, and they got a win, upset fashion. Kane Madrano had a huge pick six. Ethan Garbers played incredible. It was a great game all around for UCLA, and that was one of their 3 straight conference wins. They beat Rutgers, then Nebraska, then Iowa. So Nebraska's looking for a little get back here. They're going to be going on the road to California, and I think the Bruins deny the Cornhuskers that revenge and get a big win. So UCLA, I think they're going to be better than they were this year. Obviously, we're going to have to see how it shakes out when it comes to the transfer portal and the starters. But Nebraska, they got their starting quarterback, Dylan Raiola. He was rumored to be hitting the transfer portal, but has kind of rectified those claims, and he's going to be staying with head coach Matt Rule and the Cornhuskers next year. So you give Raiola another year, but then you give this defense and defensive coordinator Akaika Malloy another year to study him and what this Cornhusker offense brings. I think the Bruins get the win at home. They've been traditionally pretty solid at the Rose Bowl. So the Bruins will become bowl eligible once again after missing out this past season. They'll be 6-3 before they head on the road to the Shoe in Columbus, Week 11 against Ohio State. Don't need to say much more. I mean, keep it plain and simple, just like the Penn State game. You'd have to play absolutely flawless, and Ohio State would have to crumble like they did against Michigan this year for the Bruins to come out on top. I see Ohio State crushing them, make it 6-4 on the year for UCLA. And then Week 12 and Week 13 are a couple of familiar matchups that were back-to-back games this past year. It's Week 12 against Washington and Week 13 to wrap up the season against USC. I see them splitting these games. Head coach Jed Fish of the Washington Huskies has the number of the Bruins program. Used to be the head coach, used to be an offensive coordinator with the Bruins as well. And he continues to have success against UCLA like he did this past year with 17 clutch points late in the game to take down UCLA. This is at Washington this coming year. It's going to be at the Rose Bowl. I think the Huskies get it done. I think they're going to win over the Bruins just because of Fish's knowledge of the program. And, he's got a lot of seniors this year, but that doesn't really mean much for a lot of programs because for their ability to, bolster their programs and reload in the portal. And then Week 13, as we just recently mentioned, USC, this one's going to be at the Coliseum on the road at the Crosstown Showdown. So instead of the Bruins finishing their schedule, their regular season schedule with a road game against Fresno State, non-conference that is, they're going to be finishing up against their rival. And I think UCLA gets a little revenge this year. Don't know what USC is going to be bringing out offensively. They lost several key transfers over the past month or so. with other programs stepping in. A big one being Julian Lewis, the 5-star quarterback that flipped to Colorado. So UCLA, I mean, this is always a barn burner. It's a good fight. 19-13 was the score this past season, and let's flip it. Give me a 19-13 Bruins win to finish 7-5 on the year and flipping their record from a year ago of 5-7. It's a more favorable schedule than what it was last year when UCLA had to play, I mean, all the top teams in the Big Ten, Indiana, Penn State, had to play Oregon. And then you also had LSU on the schedule, which is not an easy game at all. But then you got a couple that you can win, very winnable games in Maryland, Northwestern, Michigan State as well, Nebraska rematch. Those are all very winnable Big Ten games. So what I'm looking for here is probably 4 Big Ten wins. I don't think you're going to beat Ohio State, Indiana, or Penn State. Washington's a winnable game as well. So you shoot for 4, possibly 5 Big Ten wins, and I mean, you're not going to be competing for a Big Ten championship. I don't think the Bruins are ready for that, but it'll get you in a bowl eligibility. It gets you to a solid bowl game at 7-5 and start to move this program in the right direction under head coach Deshaun Foster. Glad we could talk the 2025 football upcoming schedule for the Bruins. This has been the UCLA Bruins Insider Podcast with your host, Tom Cavanaugh. Once again, follow me at TCAF30 on Twitter/X and our insider pages at UCLA Insider on SI. Thanks so much, everybody. We will see you again next time.